What if the most powerful men in history possessed a secret, psychological blueprint for their rule? Not a political strategy or a military doctrine, but a deeper, more personal system for managing the immense pressures of absolute power. What if they intuitively understood how to manipulate the very chemistry of motivation and reward within their own brains and the brains of those they ruled? While they had no knowledge of neurons or neurotransmitters, the Roman emperors were master architects of human experience. They operated according to a principle we would now recognize through a modern neuroscience framework, the dopamine menu. Dopamine is not only the molecule of pleasure, it is the molecule of anticipation, motivation, and drive. It is the fuel for pursuit. The Roman emperor in his daily life was not just a ruler of territories, but a conductor of neurochemical symphonies, orchestrating his own and manipulating that of his subjects to project power, maintain control, and quite simply, survive. Their world was a brutal laboratory of reward and punishment, and their understanding of it was a matter of life and death. To understand this, we must first look at the appetizers on their menu, the small daily rituals that provided quick, reliable hits of affirmation and control. For a Roman emperor, every day began with a potent dose of social validation, the salutatio. Each morning, a procession of senators, citizens, and clients would line up at his residence to pay their respects. This was not a casual greeting. It was a formal, hierarchical ritual that reinforced the emperor's supreme status from the moment he awoke. The act of being petitioned, admired, and sought after by the most powerful men in the world was a powerful, predictable dopamine loop, a daily reminder of his position at the apex of the human pyramid. Another crucial appetizer was the adlocatio, the address to the troops. Before a battle or during an inspection, the emperor would stand before his legions. The coordinated roar of thousands of soldiers, shouting his name, clashing swords against shields, was a massive, immediate neurochemical spike. This ritual was not just for morale, it was a direct injection of loyalty and awe, securing the allegiance of the one institution that could make or break his reign. The historian Tacitus, in his Annals, captures the power of this connection, noting how the personal bond between legions and their commander could override loyalty to the distant Senate in Rome. This was dopamine as a political tool. And then there was the most visceral appetizer of all, the gesture of life and death in the arena. At the gladiatorial games, the emperor held the power of missio, granting mercy or death, the cheer of the crowd, the pleading glance of a defeated gladiator, and the ultimate, godlike decision communicated with a simple turn of his thumb. The pollica verso was a display of absolute, instant gratification power. The Roman poet Juvenal, in his satires, famously critiqued the populace's obsession with bread and circuses. But for the emperor, the circus was a vital lever of control, a place where he could deliver potent, public doses of reward and punishment to keep the masses pacified and himself empowered. But an empire cannot run on appetizers alone. The true engineering of power came from the main courses, the large, sustained rituals designed for long-term stability and legacy building. The pinnacle of this was the Roman triumph. This was not just a victory parade. It was a choreographed dopamine megadose, the ultimate reward for a successful military campaign. The triumphant general, later the privilege of the emperor alone, was treated as a living god for a day. He was dressed in robes of purple and gold, his face painted red like the statue of Jupiter, Optimus Maximus. He rode in a 4-horse chariot through the streets of Rome, followed by his legions, carts overflowing with spoils of war, and captured enemy leaders who would often be executed at the parade's conclusion. The entire city participated in this spectacle. The roaring crowds, the scent of incense, the sheer, overwhelming sensory overload were designed to create an unforgettable peak experience. The historian Flavius Josephus left a detailed account of the triumph of Vespasian and Titus after the sack of Jerusalem, describing the immense spoils of war, the treasures of the temple, and the captive Jewish leader Simon Bar Giora being dragged to his defeat. This single, monumental event was a neurochemical investment. It cemented the emperor's legend in the minds of the people, rewarded his army's years of sacrifice, and intimidated any potential rival. It was a masterclass in using a singular, massive reward to fuel years of future loyalty and effort, binding the collective psyche of Rome to the person of the emperor. Another form of main course was the act of building. Constructing a temple, a bath complex, a forum, or a column was a long-term, goal-oriented project that provided a sustained source of motivational dopamine. Emperor Trajan's column, for instance, with its spiraling 650-foot narrative frieze depicting his Dacian wars, was not just a monument, it was a story in marble, a permanent anticipatory reward for his achievements. The focus required to plan, fund, and oversee such a project for years channeled the emperor's drive toward a tangible legacy. The Roman biographer Suetonius, in his Lives of the 12 Caesars, frequently notes the building projects of each emperor, from Augustus, who found Rome a city of brick and left it a city of marble, to the practical aqueducts and roads of others, highlighting how construction was a recognized pillar of a successful reign, a productive outlet for the imperial drive. Then came the desserts, the decadent, luxurious pleasures that history most associates with the imperial office. This is where the dopamine menu became a double-edged sword. Emperors like Caligula, Nero, and Elagabalus had access to the most extreme sensory experiences imaginable, feasts featuring exotic dishes like flamingo tongues and parrotfish livers, wines flavored with gold dust, and elaborate orgies. This was the equivalent of binging on cheap dopamine. The critical neurological principle at play here is the concept of a dopamine baseline. The more you spike your dopamine with extreme, novel stimuli, the lower your baseline level drops, requiring ever more extreme and destructive behavior to feel the same level of pleasure or even just normalcy. This is the scientific explanation for the descent into madness and tyranny that Suetonius so vividly describes. He writes of Nero's extravagant domus aurea, golden house, a palace so vast it had a lake and rolling countryside in the heart of Rome, and of Caligula's alleged insanity, including making his horse a consul and demanding to be worshipped as a living god. These were not only the actions of evil men, they were the behaviors of individuals with shattered dopamine systems, trapped in a futile cycle of seeking a satisfaction that their own excess had made impossible to achieve. The mythical vomitorium, a place where Romans supposedly vomited to continue eating, is just that, a myth, but it persists as a powerful metaphor for this entire cycle, the binge and the crash, the endless consumption that leads not to fulfillment, but to emptiness. Finally, the most perilous section of the imperial menu was the chef's specials, the high-stakes, novel experiences that defined the unique thrill of the throne. For an emperor, the ultimate novelty was staying alive. The Roman court was a hotbed of conspiracy. Uncovering a plot, as terrifying as it was, provided a perverse, high-stakes game. The subsequent investigation, the executions, and the public exposure of the traitors were a novel and deeply satisfying sequence. It was a powerful reinforcement of the emperor's intelligence, power, and divine favor. The Historia Augusta, a later collection of imperial biographies, is filled with tales of such conspiracies and their brutal suppression, illustrating how paranoia and the thrill of survival were constant companions to power. Other chef's specials were more constructive. Emperor Hadrian spent more than half of his reign traveling the length and breadth of the empire, from the damp northern walls of Britain to the deserts of Egypt. This constant novelty, seeing new lands, meeting new legions, founding new cities, was a healthy, engaging special that kept his rule dynamic and his mind sharp, preventing the stagnation and indulgence that doomed so many of his predecessors. The ultimate proof of this dopamine menu framework lies in the stark contrast between two very different emperors. Nero and Marcus Aurelius, Nero's menu was catastrophically unbalanced. It was dominated by dessert and dangerous chef's specials. He performed on stage as a singer and lyre player, a shocking novelty for a Roman aristocrat, diverting his drive into what the senatorial class saw as a disgraceful pursuit. His alleged burning of Rome to clear land for his domus aurea was the ultimate act of destructive, novelty-seeking consumption. His reign ended in suicide, his treasury bankrupt, his name cursed. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, provides the ultimate contrast. His menu was an exercise in Stoic restraint, a conscious effort to find dopamine in virtue and duty rather than decadence. His main course was not a triumph, but the grueling, years-long Marcomannic wars on the Danube frontier, where he lived and campaigned with his troops. His appetizers were the simple, philosophical reflections he wrote in his personal journal, known to us as meditations. In it, he wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts, and you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This was his guide to managing his internal state. He actively avoided the desserts of imperial life, finding motivation and satisfaction in discipline, responsibility, and the well-being of the empire. He used the principles of the dopamine menu in reverse, finding a stable and sustainable source of purpose that allowed him to be remembered as one of history's few, truly good emperors. So, the story of the Roman emperor is more than a chronicle of conquest and cruelty. It is a profound case study in the psychology of power. They were masters of engineering pleasure and power, proving that the struggle to manage our inner drives, to choose our main courses over fleeting desserts, to find novelty and growth rather than destruction, is not a modern obsession. It is a timeless human challenge, played out on the most magnificent and terrifying stage the world has ever known. Their lives stand as a stark lesson. Whether you rule an empire or simply your own life, understanding what fuels your drive is the first and most important step toward wielding power wisely. Watch the next video to learn more, and let us know in the comments below which ancient secrets you'd like us to uncover next.